Thank you for joining us for a CattleTrace Conversation. My name is Kyler Langvart. I serve as a program manager for US CattleTrace here, based out of Kansas, but operating across the entire United States with members in over 20 states. Today, our CattleTrace Conversation is with a partner of ours, Heath Parkin. These CattleTrace Conversations are built to engage some of our technology partners as well as our industry partners in conversations about animal disease traceability and about the technology used in those operations to inform our producers how they can get engaged with their own operations in this technology. So I've been talking enough. Let me go ahead and throw it to Heath. Heath, would you mind introducing yourself and just telling us a bit about you and APK?
Hi Kyle, thanks very much for the opportunity to speak here with you and the CattleTrace followers. Yeah, APK. APK is a family owned and run business started in 2003. It was established by two brothers, Alok and Puneet Kapoor, and over the last 20 years they've grown that business to be quite a large business. 4 major manufacturing facilities in India, producing electronic items and plastic molded items. APK is supported by sales offices in the UK, Switzerland and the Netherlands. We're working globally with mainly business to business operations, so working with people like CattleTrace and other businesses that we hope to develop our network with for the animal techs is hugely important to us. We've got products, solutions and manufacturing capabilities assigned to all the use applications. Industry and logistics, we make an awful lot of tags for the laundry industry, waste management industries. We make access control cards, the very things that we're all going into our hotel rooms with now, with different technologies. We work with immobilizers for automotive applications. You name it, anywhere that RFID exists, counterfeit drugs for example, supply chain tracking, all these things where we're adding authenticity and ID to individual items, we are there at some level. Obviously, importantly, and part of the reason we're having this conversation is because we're trying to increase our presence in the animal agricultural sector. And what we're trying to do is develop interest in a range of tags which are using best of tag technology, using both UHF and LF tags.
That's great, Heath. Thanks for that information about APK. I think one of the things that is often forgot in the tech industry, specifically when it comes to using that LF and UHF technology that we talk about quite a bit, US CattleTrace, in our animals, is the fact that it's been in the industry for a while. And industry leaders like APK and others have been using this information and technology in their separate industries to better manage their own systems. And so it's great to think about that position. And Heath and APK you have an interesting background being a global company and understanding that not only is our systems limited to where we are, they're becoming increasingly global, and they have for quite a while, and we've seen that specifically these past couple of years. So thanks for sharing that, Heath, about APK and kind of what the overall company accomplishes. So as you think about some of these things regarding UHF and LHF, we're excited to not only partner with you all in technology, but hopefully soon roll out your tags in our own US CattleTrace tag storefront. So can you kind of describe to us what your current efforts are on the UHF and LF front? There's been a lot of discussion about the use of a dual frequency tag, which is a new versatile option for those in the US cattle industry. And APK is one of the first companies to offer those tags. So can you tell us what the idea was behind that and maybe some of the advantages you see to that versus only one or the other technology?
Yeah, sure. Well, when we look at a combination of technologies in one tag, usually when an industry does this, it's to protect the existing infrastructures. Quite a lot of people will have invested globally in electronic systems to reference with and work with LF. Now, what we're asking for people, or what the industry will want to do, is at certain pinch points in the supply chain and the management of animals, is to work more efficiently. Now, you can only work more efficiently, really, if we move technologies. So UHF tags give this opportunity. But what we can't afford to do is to overnight expect the industry to make redundant all that existing infrastructure. So let's call the dual technology tags a bridge product. Okay, so what that does is it allows a new technology and the advantages that technology brings to enter the market, but without upsetting everything else that's already in place. So this bridge product allows us to harness the advantages of a new technology while still taking advantages of the existing technologies and the existing costs that have been spent to utilize those.
That's great.
Does that make sense, Dan?
Yeah, it does. And I think a lot of our producers have had questions regarding that. And so it's cool to hear that there is continuing advantages to potentially using technology like this. But we've also had several questions from folks about the reading interference with the two different technologies, because as we know, UHF and LF do have different read-in frequencies. And sometimes if that technology needs fine-tuned, it needs fine-tuned in the right places. So what have you all discovered during that process of putting these two technologies together and the fine-tuning of that? Have you had any reading interference? Maybe potentially, what have you done to counteract that? And how do you see that coming into play for producers and or market owners that potentially use your product?
Okay, yeah, it's an interesting question. I think there's been a lot of conversation about interference with these two technologies, one having a negative impact on the other. And the reality is that the frequencies are so far apart from each other. The frequencies are different. There's no interference to note. But what you will have to understand is that if you are deploying UHF where you're familiar with deploying LF, there are different considerations to be made about how you deploy the infrastructure, antenna positions, antenna angles. All these things, they're very similar to the LF considerations, but you're working at a greater distance for the animal, and it does involve a slightly different approach to the deployment. Yeah. So I don't really see there's a big issue, Kyle. There's certainly the users and the industry don't have anything to worry about in regards to these two frequencies or these two technologies working against each other. I don't see that as a true fact.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And thinking about those two technologies and how they're used today in the industry, and we have producers around the country who have started with LF and maybe have adopted UHF, but we still have quite a few industry professionals, including cow-calf producers, who still are pretty unsure about the technology as a whole. When you're thinking about things like UHF and LF, how could a traditional producer, if you're a cow-calf producer in the United States, hopefully they'll be soon investing in tags through the tag storefront. But even before that, can you walk us, Heath, through how a cow-calf producer specifically, and maybe in the United States or even abroad, how could they engage with that technology and utilize the products that you all are making in their own operations? Okay.
Well, I think anybody wanting to engage with EID products, let's look at this from an industry point of view. Yes, we are APK, we've got some really great products and we want to make those available to the market, but let's just look at EID in general. And I think you're doing a great job as CattleTrace, and I think if people want to engage in an accurate, quick manner, really the best thing they can do is to join CattleTrace, to take out a membership, read some of the information that's available there, speak with the people that represent CattleTrace, and start to deploy that technology. I really think that's the best place to engage with EID. Certainly, we will have a range of tags available on there, and we'd really like you to choose ours, but there are other tags there, and I think the best of type tag, ultimately, the ones that the farmers like to use will find the largest market share. So through CattleTrace, I think initially.
Well, thanks for that, Heath. I appreciate you plugging us there. As we continue to see more and more producers become engaged with what the technology is in the first place, we've seen some opportunities to not only engage with them about the technology, but also about the infrastructure as a whole. I think quite a few producers still have questions about how this infrastructure will be built, how it will be supplied to them, and how they can utilize it in their own operations. So I appreciate you kind of not only plugging us, but also realizing that this is a new technology for the agriculture industry, specifically in the cow-calf sector and in cattle as a whole. So it'll be uniquely interesting to see how it transitions in the next couple of years. But not only as we at US CattleTrace, are focused solely on disease traceability, and that's why we have partners like you at APK, and to ensure that our industry professionals and cow-calf producers are able to not only focus on disease traceability, but also potentially gain economic benefits through the use of the technology. And you, Heath, mentioned that you have quite a bit of experience in the technology sector with the past 14 years, not only at APK, but at your previous ventures. So as you think about how the technology has developed as a whole for many industries, how do you see this technology specifically helping the U.S. beef herd with something like disease traceability, and using that for a greater good, like animal disease traceability?
Okay. Well, I guess we really need to frame what we're talking about, which is UHF and LF technologies. And obviously we've got the visual tags as well. So a visual tag does offer disease traceability, but it's error prone. So I guess over here, UK and Europe, where I spend most of my time, very often the tags don't stay clean. They're very dirty, and if it's got a printed number on, you're down to an interaction, a visual interaction, to read that number. We've all done it, I'm sure we have. I don't know that you're going to admit to it, but certainly I've typed things out where I've had to type a 6 and it's turned out to be an 8, or I've had to type 4 zeros and I typed 6 zeros, this type of thing. So with a visual tag, only a visual tag, yes, it does offer some traceability, but it's traceability with error. When we move on to LF and UHF technologies, we're now being able to capture this data automatically, electronically. So we've eliminated all of that human aspect, the potential errors there. Therefore, any traceability system that uses that electronic method of data collection it's a significant advantage over a visual. So then let's now look at the LF and the UHF technologies together. LF, I'm pretty sure, will always have a place in the animal industry. UHF will occupy more market share as time progresses, and I think that'll be quite a quick growth over the next 2 or 3 years as things like this and the cattle trace and the awareness becomes more. What we've got to think about is with LF, the interaction with a reader system has got to be one-on-one. You can only read one tag at any one time. That's just the way the technology works. So that's great. We've got no error in reading that tag or getting the data, the ID that's been assigned to the animal back from the tag. We can do that, but we can do it at that animal, then this animal, and then this animal. Perfect, but it's slow. And what we're seeing more and more now as agriculture optimizes is the need to process animals en masse more quickly. It's not always convenient to process an animal individually, 1, 2, 3, 4. But we can all see the benefits of UHF where we're working with an anti-collision capability. That means that multiple tags can be referenced by a single antenna almost simultaneously in real time. Picture this. Is it more efficient to load a truck one animal at a time through a crush gate, well, offload say, one at a time, or let them come out 6 abreast, quickly, and not need to limit them other than for their own safety, of course, and the safety of the people working around, but to be able to increase that flow? Huge advantages. Also, when we start talking about UHF technologies, the speed at which more data can be transmitted into an infrastructure. Now, we're moving slightly off advantage in traceability because the advantage of EID at traceability level is simply knowing which animal was at what location at what time. When we start using EID and particularly UHF technology, everybody after the cow-calf operator gets huge advantages in the speed at which they can process animals. Now, I think this is one of the things that's addressed by CattleTrace. True traceability needs to start on the farm of birth, the cow-calf operator, or the holding of birth, that we would say here in the UK. Why would a farmer spend, let's just say, $1 more on an EID tag when he can do what he needs to do to cover the legislation by putting in a visual tag? I guess that's accurate. I'm making an accurate statement there, Carla. Would you agree?
I would agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So what we now do is, so when we talk about asking the cow-calf operator to spend $1 more for an EID tag, I get the fact that it's another dollar that's a cost to him that represents no additional value. It doesn't mean he complies more with legislation. It just means he spent $1 more on that animal. And I get that. Why should he do it? And I think what CattleTrace are doing, where they're encouraging the people who do get a financial advantage from EID, that is in addition to the traceability. I think what you're doing, and by people sponsoring CattleTrace, feeding that in to subsidise and take away that additional cost, is absolutely essential. You know, effectively, the people who are getting the biggest advantages from EID are the people now who are putting money back in to subsidise those cow-calf operators. So it really should, with time, become a no-brainer. These cow-calf operators, I guess, should all be moving and see the benefits from moving towards EID. Now, we keep saying, and I keep having discussions with people who say that EID has no advantage whatsoever to a cow-calf operator. And I'd have to disagree with that fact, because there's a huge problem hanging over everybody. It's intangible until it happens. But if we all accept that if there was a disease outbreak, that could be catastrophic, by investing in the EID, you actually mitigate significantly something that could potentially happen. So that surely, I mean, just tell me, Carla, do you agree that that has got an advantage for a cow-calf operator?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the unique thing that our CattleTrace volunteers and even staff have felt is that we're all cow-calf producers ourselves. So, you know, everyone has to come along at the right time to understand that there is an inherent risk with our business. There are several inherent risks with producing cattle, but this is certainly one that is going to need addressing. And so, you know, for me and my family, we have cattle in north central Kansas. And we have to come to that understanding as well, and understand that hopefully that technology such as what APK is creating and that US CattleTrace is promoting are and will hopefully provide benefits beyond simply just what a visual tag could offer in terms of not only animal disease traceability, but potentially the benefits that we could continue to develop with partners like APK. So Heath, I appreciate your time and I appreciate you kind of also addressing some of the things that US CattleTrace are addressing. So I wanted to give you time as well, Heath. I know if you're watching this video now or in the future, we'll hopefully have our APK tags available on our US CattleTrace storefront. You can find those at uscattletrace.org/tag store. Heath, are there any additional ways that producers who are interested in technology like yours could engage with you, or is there any ways that maybe they could potentially get in contact with you if they wanted to learn more?
That's really, yeah, really kind of you. I don't know whether it's possible, but if we could perhaps somewhere on the video here put up a business card so they can contact us directly. Mm-hmm. Yep. And if they send an email directly to me or one of my team, we'll get back to them very quickly, and we can expand the discussion and probably have a much more in-depth, more coherent conversation than I've been able to deliver here. But let's see how that pans out. So if we could do that, Kyla, I'd be very grateful.
Yep. We can absolutely get that done. If you're watching, you'll probably see that on your screen right now. So Heath, I wanted to thank you for taking time today to talk with our interested producers, as well as anyone who might stumble upon this video. One of our goals at US Cattle Trace is to ensure that not only are we promoting the usage of this technology for things like disease traceability, but we're also educating those who are interested in the topic. So I think today we've hopefully done a little bit of both, and I appreciate you all for joining us today. We'll see you for our next CattleTrace conversation soon.